Now, can you hear me better?
That's
Okay.
pretty good, yeah.
Pasco didn't need a microphone. My name's Darlene Correa, and I'm here to talk about House Bill 5171. I'm a resident of Providence, Rhode Island, but I've only lived in Rhode Island 8 years, and very certain words you'll be able to tell I'm originally from Massachusetts. I'm here to talk to you on a professional and personal level. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I run and I founded a nonprofit organization called Take Back Your Life, which assists domestic violence and sexual assault survivors move forward. But more importantly, I'm a survivor of childhood and adult sexual assault and domestic violence. The importance of extending the statute of limitations for child abuse cases cannot be emphasized enough. Adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse who find the strength and courage to come forward are often harassed as to why they waited so long to come forward. On a personal level, I could state my reasons for waiting. I did not come forward sooner, as my abuser continually reminded me that he would kill me and my family if I told anyone. Also, I was told no one would believe me, and it was my fault. As a young child, I was taught to always believe what adults told me. The first sexual abuse I recall began when I was 10 years old and continued till I was 12 years old. I did not openly discuss the abuse until I was in my 40s. I am currently 57 years old. And important part that I feel that some people have touched on a little bit, but I want to go into more detail with, that it affects all socioeconomic levels, every gender, every race. Because I grew up, as I said, in Massachusetts, and my family was upper middle class. We had a housekeeper, and we were very well, looked upon from the community, but you did not discuss it because the parents says, what would people think? And I said this happened in 71. I was born in the 60s, so of course back then things were even different. And the first, as the other gentleman had said, rape, because it's not sexual assault, it is rape. That didn't stop there, and the way it impacted my whole life, I was in abusive relationships from beginning to end. I've had my ribs broken. I have a scar from 8 staples in my head, a broken cheekbone, and permanent and worsening nerve damage. But and then I've had a car stolen, set on fire. So your self-worth and your self-esteem, you feel like you're not worth it because what did you do wrong to be sexually abused at such a young age? I'm on my second marriage, but my first marriage, I was married for 20 plus years, and he sexually abused all 3 of my children and let his friends do that also. They're all in their 30s now, and they're definitely having a lot of difficulties in their life. I've tried to commit suicide 3 times. Luckily, I didn't succeed, because I say I don't wish what happened to me on anyone, but I'm here for a reason. Professionally, as I said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I used to be a paralegal in Massachusetts, but I saw how the justice system treated people. My last abuse was in 2008, and it was in the newspapers everywhere in Massachusetts, and that's when I got the 8 staples in my head. And I saw how I was treated with restraining orders, and it was in the papers. He was charged with attempted murder, sexual assault, and they kept letting him go and letting him go. And I hard to believe I used to be soft-spoken and quiet, but I stood up in front of the judge and I just said, I want it on record when I end up dead that you could tell my family you didn't think he was a threat. He got 18 months in jail, and they said that was setting a precedent. So when I moved to Rhode Island, got remarried, I ended up going back to college after 35 years, and I got my bachelor's of social work, then my master's of social work, and then I became a licensed clinical social worker, and I founded the nonprofit. It's tax-exempt 501c3. I Take Back Your Life, and I do the annual fundraisers, which Representative Place goes to every year. And I'm having it in April, and the goal is to take one of the abandoned buildings in Rhode Island, because there's plenty of them, and I'm trying to get grants to use as a centralized location, because there's so many, I like to say survivors, not victims, that are re-traumatized by the system. Because they have to retell their story over and over again. And a lot of the places that offer services for childhood sexual adult survivors, they have no child care, there's no pet-friendly purposes. So I would make it pet-friendly, I would have child care. And also, professional level, clients have told me that I work with that they did not come forward because they were afraid that they'd be taken away from their family and not believed. And additionally, I've worked with clients from various cultures, and they said sexual abuse was not discussed in their culture, and that's an embarrassment and a mark against the family. Previous to my current employment, I worked with level 2 and 3 male sex offenders. And a lot of people asked as a survivor how I could do that. And my reason for doing that was trying to understand their mindset and why they sexually abuse children. And I was trying to prevent one more victim from becoming a victim. And I learned a great deal from them. And what they told me, it had nothing to do with the sex act itself. It was all about power and control. And they wanted someone else to feel the pain that they felt when they were children. And as I said, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and people always talked about stranger danger. And with all the sex offenders that I worked with, none of them, it was stranger danger. They all groomed the person, they're vulnerable, they all knew everybody. And I've even had a client that he purposely told me he went into child pastoring so he could have kids around him. And like one story that I've never forgotten, that there's one, I don't want to say gentleman, person, that he looked like a CEO from a company, and he was a sex offender I worked with, and he said that he played Santa Claus for the neighborhood party so he could have little kids sit on his lap. And so I expressed to him, like, these poor kids are going to think of Santa Claus now, and that's what they're going to think of. And also, like I said, that they kept saying that it was the pain that they felt, and they wanted someone else to feel the pain, that they felt that they didn't get enough attention. So a lot of it was to do with attention. Clients I currently work with, because I have like private practice now that I work with clients, they've experienced sexual abuse. They stated they waited to talk about their abuse until their abusers had passed away, or they felt they were in a secure place in their life. Once the abuser passes away, the traumatized child hiding inside the adult survivor is reborn and begins to live again, but so do the memories of the sexual abuse. With the right support, the scared child inside each adult survivor, including myself, finds our voices and speaks our truth. Society often questions how a survivor can recall details of an experience that occurred decades ago. A survivor of any trauma, especially childhood sexual abuse, can never forget abuse that impacted them for the rest of their life, no matter how much he or she wants to. The developing mind of a child is capable of processing a particular amount of information, whether traumatic or not. The brain just develops at a certain speed. The brain has a built-in defense mechanism that protects it from traumatic events until the individual is ready to process the trauma. As I stated previously, my first sexual abuse occurred when I was 10 years old in 1971. However, I can remember every detail as if it happened yesterday. The color and feel of the bedspread, the squeak of the hardwood floor when he walked on it, the color of the curtains, and the parakeet chirping in the corner in the cage in the corner of the room. In passing House Bill 5171, you will let survivors know our voices are being heard and our lives matter, and justice can still be achieved. As a survivor and a therapist, I want to thank you for your time and consideration in passing House Bill 5171.
Thank you.